Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week you'll hear inspirational stories of heart-centered leaders who have awakened to their higher purpose and taken that leap of faith to follow their heart and make an impact in the world. Get ready to be enlightened, empowered, and transformed with your host, Jennifer Spohr.
I'm thrilled to welcome as a guest to the show today, Pattie Grimm. She is a passionate woman leader who has dedicated her life to empowering women and girls to be the best they can be in any endeavor they choose. She is an author, speaker, trainer, coach, podcast guest, and a women's advocate. She's walked a mile in your shoes, gone from rock star to rock bottom, and came back stronger than ever. Pattie has over 25 years experience as a senior leader for global companies like Microsoft and Johnson & Johnson. She runs her own training and consulting company. Pattie lives in Rancho Mirage, California, with her husband and two pugs, Roxy and Mango. Her book, Quiet Women Never Changed History, Be Strong, Stand Up, and Stand Out, Let's Go Kick Some Glass, is available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. Welcome, Pattie.
Hi, Jennifer. How are you today?
Good. I'm great. Hopefully I didn't butcher the town that you live in. I feel like I might have not pronounced it correctly.
It's Rancho Mirage, California. We're just outside of Palm Springs, where today it's down to 104.
Yeah, it gets pretty warm out that way. I haven't lived there, but I actually lived in Sacramento, California for a few years, and it gets pretty hot there too.
Yeah.
So, Pattie, I'm excited to have this conversation. What inspired you to do the work that you're doing today? I know that's a big question.
Yeah, and really, it really started way back when I actually was in banking, and I actually went from being a part-time teller in college to being one of the first female vice presidents for a large California bank. And back then, and this was back in the 90s, I'll date myself a little here. This was back in the 90s, and I started doing these conferences on Saturdays for all of our non-officer staff, more like the people that are the tellers, the new accounts people, the people you see when you walk into your bank every day. And I was doing these seminars on Saturdays, these motivational seminars, and I'd pay them overtime. I'd bus them in from all over California. We'd have a wonderful event. And after a couple of times of doing these events twice a year, someone said, well, why are you paying all these speakers to come in and talk about empowering women and being motivated and having this wonderful things and being awakened on purpose like your show? Why don't you be the speaker? And so I did. I took all the money I used to pay these big time speakers and I gave it away in prizes to people who came to the event. So we had raffle prizes and games and things going on. And it kind of started way back then. I left that really secure job. My husband thought I was crazy, but I followed my heart and my purpose and passion and started my own consulting company the first time. And I loved that job and I loved what I was doing, but I really wanted to go out and do something where I could have a bigger impact and have a bigger purpose to my life. And then in 1998, I got hired by Microsoft. And at Microsoft, I was speaking at all the women's events. I had an amazing career. I was there for 15 years. I even ran the Asia Pacific region customer partner experience team in Asia and lived in Singapore for 3 years. So I've traveled the world. I've been all around every place you can imagine. At the end of my 14th year, I got a huge promotion, was put on the executive potential program. And sometime during that year, I started to go from being a rock star on the top of the corporate ladder on this executive potential program to literally hitting rock bottom. And I could feel myself as a strong woman leader. I could feel myself like I was falling down a cliff and couldn't stop my fall. And I got to a point where I was going from loving my job every day to having to put on that happy face and be the happy, positive Pattie I always was and was playing a role. But inside, I was physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually done. I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, every night, every weekend. I was playing all these other roles that people thought I should play. I was trying to be that round peg in a square hole. And I really got to a point I'm sitting in front of a doctor who says you'll be dead in 6 months if you don't take care of yourself and take some time off. So I took a 4-month sabbatical, and I kind of did a whole lot of self-care and doing a lot of things, seeing the proper doctors and things to get me back on track. And it was that event that really inspired me to then really want to help other women and help women who maybe experience a similar kind of thing or were starting to experience that, and I could stop their fall. And so that's what led me to dedicating my life to empowering women and girls to be the best they can be in any endeavor they choose. I took time to find myself again, and during that process, I interviewed over 3,200 women and men leaders on what makes great women leaders. And I put that together in my book that you mentioned that has full of best practices and exercises and things that we can chat a bit as we go along. But it was really sort of that event that said, women need to take care of themselves. They need to be awake and on purpose. They need to have a vision for their life. We need to be confident and strong and not apologize for who we are and what we stand for. So that's kind of my short, long version of my little story.
Yeah, I really can relate to your story, as I'm sure so many others can. I on my own journey of transition had similar feelings of being burned out and just no longer being challenged. And so I can really relate to that time in your life that you described.
Yeah, and in the process, I really found these, what I call 5 proven ways to be a strong, empowered, confident woman leader, or just leader. I look forward to the day we can just say that, hey, Jennifer's a great leader, and we don't need to say Jennifer's a great woman leader, right? So I want to get to that point where we can have that vocabulary, but really these 5 things are ways that any woman can really, I love the name of your show, so I'll keep saying it, how they can be awake and have a purpose to their life and a passion for their life.
That's really what it's all about. I believe 100% that each one of us is put here on the planet for a purpose. And that purpose involves, doing something that we love, that is also a talent and that is also of service to others. Absolutely.
And really the first thing I discovered in interviewing all of these people was the number one thing was play to your strengths. So finding what your strengths are, figuring out what brings you joy, the things that you find yourself doing when nobody's watching, right? The things that when you do them, you feel energized and full of life. The things that, like you said, we were put on this earth for a reason. And how you fulfill that is really playing to your strengths. And so many people spend time saying, I need to improve my weaknesses. I need to get better at details, right? I'll never be good at details. I'll get to be good, but I'll never be great because it's not my strength. It's like most people are born right-handed or left-handed. You can learn to write with your opposite hand. It just never feels right. It'll feel stressful and happy. And if you write with your dominant hand and you play to your strengths, that's your passion. That's the things that, Maria, whatever her name is, the organizer guru. What brings you joy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to add to that, there are sometimes things that we can be good at, but that we don't enjoy, which I think of those things as burnout.
Absolutely. You can do them, and you can probably do them fairly well, but they're not in your strength zone. They're not in your wheelhouse, your peak performance zone, whatever, words you want to use. Yeah. They're just not you.
Yeah. Case in point, my prior career, right? I stuck in that industry for so long because of the fact that I enjoyed helping people so much and training and mentoring and lifting others up to success, which is in alignment with my purpose. But the other part that I was really good at, but didn't enjoy so much was the process improvement part.
Yes. Yes.
I got really good at it, but yeah, it didn't particularly bring me joy.
I share your pain. At one point, both at Microsoft and even once I left Microsoft, they hired me back to do my old job. I was doing all this process improvement and sales methodology and all this stuff that people thought I was great at doing. But I tell you what, I wasn't happy.
Yeah, right.
It didn't bring me joy.
Pattie, every experience in our lives shapes who we are, and I think we've touched on this briefly, but what experience in your life do you feel has been the most significant in shaping who you are today?
I think it goes back to the way I was raised. I was raised with a very strong mother who was the youngest of 9 kids in Wheeling, West Virginia, and she truly was a coal miner's daughter. So I was raised with a very strong mother and a very strong father who told me I could do anything I put my mind to do, and I was just as good as any boy. So it always stuck with me back then. And so throughout my career, I always was known as being this strong, confident person. I remember when I was at vice president of a big California bank, I was at one of those really big meetings in this corporate tower, and all the men were dressed in their gray suits, and I walked in my color is red, so when I speak or I talk, I have on red high heels, I wear red clothes. I walked in this bright red suit. And I'm in this meeting for a couple of hours, and all these men are in the meeting, and I finally said, excuse me, I need to go to the restroom. I'll be back in a couple minutes. And one of these big, male, pale, and stale leaders, a friend of mine calls all Caucasian men leaders as male, pale, and stale. So one of these old bankers looks at me and says, young lady, we don't take breaks during these meetings because it breaks our momentum. And I looked at this man who was an executive vice president, and I was just, relatively young. I looked at him and said, well, you can watch me go to the bathroom, or I can pee right here on the floor. Which one would you like? So I got up and I left, and I came back 2 minutes later, and I'm sure he was aghast when I walked out of the room. And I really think I had some amazing men and women mentors that helped me. I just saw a research study that said women who have men mentors earn 13% more because they have a sponsor who sponsors them and believes in them and puts them in the right place and positions them within the company to say, I think Jennifer's ready for this next promotion. So I thank my mentors, back to my parents, and I'm starting my own company twice, like leaving big successful corporate jobs and starting my own company twice.
Yeah, a lot to celebrate and be grateful for.
Yeah, every day. Every day I wake up and say, wow, who do I get to talk to today?
Right? That's how I feel too. I really just love talking with people and helping people. And on that note, there are more people than ever out in the world right now who are at that crossroads in their life, right? People who are feeling that call to do more, but maybe they haven't taken that leap of faith yet. What would be your advice for those people to be able to take that leap?
I would say a couple things. One of the things I also have in the book, which is the second sort of principle, is around being able to stand up. Create a personal leadership vision for yourself. So in order to stand up and decide what you want to do, you need something to stand on. So I'm going to have 2 parts to this answer. The number one is I think you need a foundation. You need a personal vision statement about the kind of person, the kind of leader, the kind of woman that you want to be, or man if they're listening to the show, the kind of person you want to be known for. And I want you to create that vision, because a vision statement is like a roadmap that gives you from where you are today to where you want to be. It's like a compass that can keep you on course when things get tough, like now. With everything we're going through, how do you stay true to yourself and true to your vision? Well, you need to have a vision first. It's sort of that temperature gauge to say, am I going in the right direction, left or right? And so I encourage people to write a personal vision statement. And here's a way to do that. I want you to imagine for a minute you're on your favorite TV show and you're being interviewed, and say maybe it's the Ellen show or the Oprah show or whatever show happens to be your favorite show. And you're being interviewed and you're surrounded by your friends and family. And your friends and family and people who used to work for you and work with you and your managers are talking about you as that leader in 5 years. What do you want them to say about you? What are the words and adjectives you hear? And so as you start to hear those words and adjectives, write those down and start to create a vision statement. So you might say she made a difference. She was compassionate. She was smart. She was talented. She was caring. Whatever those words are, he was this or she was that. I want you to take those words and put them together in a vision statement and then use it to make those career and life decisions. So is your current career taking you in that direction? If not, what adjustments do you need to make? And if you're thinking about leaving or starting a company or doing something different, how will it help you fulfill that vision? So that's part one of the response. The second part is I want you to make informed decisions. When I was deciding to leave Microsoft or stay, I went through this decision-making matrix, and you commented I'm a very organized person, like I have spreadsheets for everything. So I really put together a spreadsheet of the pros and cons for staying in my current role at Microsoft, staying and taking a different role, and leaving Microsoft altogether. And I made a list of which ones best fit my strengths, which ones best fit my vision. And I did a pro and cons analysis. So what's the pro of taking this role and what's the con or what's the risk? What's the chance of that risk happening? And then I made my decision to leave the company, and I stayed for 6 months and trained my replacement. And I still was hired back to do my old job part-time as a consultant when I left. But not only did I have a decision-making metrics, but I also developed a communication plan that said, if people ask you, well, why are you leaving that secure job at the bank or Microsoft and starting your own company? Aren't you crazy? I had an answer. I wanted to live my vision, and my vision is to make a difference and empower women and girls to be the best they could be in any endeavor they choose. It was very hard to do that internally within the company, but I can leave and go back and do the same kind of work. So, think about what brings you joy, think about your vision and passion, and then make a decision about, is this filling me up with joy, or is this other opportunity I have going to be better for me? And I also tell people, I saw this quote and I have it when I do my presentations and training workshops. I have a quote that says, if plan A doesn't work out, there are 25 other letters in the alphabet. Right?
I love that. A quote I often say is, God doesn't put a dream on our heart that isn't meant to be achieved. Yeah. There's something that you're meant to do. There's a reason for your thoughts, and your ideas.
And in some cases, people might be in a situation right now, especially with what's going on. They may not be able to leave their current job, but you could start to make plans for the future. Or you could volunteer in those things that bring you joy.
Exactly. What you said is so key there, because it's not an overnight process. And this happens often with people when they feel that call to make a change. And when they start to think about it, they get overwhelmed and then do nothing because they feel like it has to be this 0 to 60 thing, but that's not it at all. It is actually the little action steps every day are what create the results.
Yeah, when I was deciding, I literally probably a year and a half before I left the bank knew I was going to leave the bank and start my own company. I was at a leadership workshop through the Center of Creative Leadership out of North Carolina, which is an amazing 5-day offsite workshop where you get feedback. It's an amazing workshop. And at that time, and this was in a year and a half before I left the bank, we were told to go find a private place and work out a personal, professional, spiritual, and emotional, physical plan for yourself. And at that time, I worked out a plan that said I was going to leave the bank by December of that year, whatever that year was. This was in May, I want to say. Well, it was actually a year prior in May, so about 18 months before. So 18 months from then, I was going to leave the bank on December 31st and start my own company. Wrote that down, put that plan away, and did not look at it for 2 years. But what I did is I went back to work and I started making connections with people. I said, I'm probably going to be leaving the bank at some time in the future. And I'd love to know more about, because I wanted to be in leadership training. I'd like to get certified in this leadership training class. I'd like to go take some courses on presentation skills. I started going to associations where I could watch other people present. I started attending training classes so I could learn how to be a better presenter, trainer. So even though I wrote that down and never looked at it again until after I'd left the bank, I was in my mind, I was planting seeds for 18 months. I was taking this workshop. I was doing presentation skills. I was going to get certified in this. I was volunteering for this kind of assignment at work to broaden my skills. I volunteered to lead a project team. And I just started getting myself ready. And so I looked back at that piece of paper after I'd left the bank and realized I quit the bank 90 days ahead of my target of the end of the year. I left the bank in September and not December of that year. So I achieved that subconscious goal that I wrote down, but I prepared myself for it.
That's awesome. You know, this is off the beaten path a little bit, but not really. A question I would like to ask, because this is, you know, it's a real thing out there. What do you think would have happened with you had you not made that change, had you not taken that leap?
I probably would have stayed in the organization and taken on some roles that probably didn't particularly fit me. I was part of a project team that worked on this major culture change transformation. And when that project was over and my boss asked me what job I wanted, I said none of them. But would you hire me back to do these leadership training classes for you? If I'd stayed at Microsoft, I probably would have just found myself in another different job. But I think eventually I would have left anyway. I think eventually I would still be doing what I'm doing today. I would still be doing the research I did and continue to do on women in the workplace and equality and creating inclusive organizations. I would still be doing those things. I really believe I would have left eventually anyway.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Just maybe at a little bit different time, but I left at a great time, right?
The reason why I ask that really is because there are so many people, and this was the case for myself as well. I mean, I didn't take action right away when I started feeling that call to change because there was fear about moving into a different industry after having done the same thing for so long. At the time, I think I was around 40, you know, so kind of a milestone age to contemplate about, you know, what you have going on and what you want to do. But there are a lot of people out there who experience that, right? They feel this call to change, but because of fear, they don't make the change. And sometimes they will reach a place to where their fear actually, to where their need to leave actually exceeds their fear because they kind of just wait until it gets to be too painful. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think one of the things that we've chatted about is that courage and fear in your body and mind feel the same way. Your brain's number one job is to protect you. And so when you're afraid, all the thought process in the front of your brain, which is your logical part, goes to the back of your brain where you get into that, and I'm sure everybody's heard this, you get into that fight, flight, flee mode. And then you're making decisions where you're reacting versus being proactive and making decisions for the right reasons. And so when you're afraid or you're excited, it feels the same way. Your heart starts to palpitate, your breath gets more shallow, and that brain goes from the front of the brain thinking to the back of the brain reacting. And so just calming yourself and taking a few minutes of breath or getting up out of the environment you're sitting in, like you're in your office or in your home, and getting outside just to get the fresh air to rejuvenate you, to get you to think more clearly, can help you. And then, making out a bit of a plan. Do you want to leave by a certain date? Or do you want to just go for a different role in your company or try something new?
Yeah. Pattie, how can someone find you if they want to connect with you? We're going to include, all of your information in our show notes, but where is the best place for someone to connect with you?
So people can connect with me at my email, pattiegrimm@live.com, and that's PATTIEGRIMM@LIVE.com. And then for your listeners, I actually have a special offer on my book. It's usually on Amazon for $18.95. People can either email me, or I'll give you a link in just a minute. They can go to this link I'll give you, and they can get my book for $10, which includes free shipping and handling in the U.S., and $200 in free bonuses, including a 30-minute training video of me walking through the 5 ways to be an empowered woman leader, a personal development, personal vision guide, and a career decision-making matrix guide. Those things are included in that. And they can go to either email me at pattiegrimm@live.com or go to www.womenkinkingglass.com/book, or just email me and I will send them the link so they can get a hold of me. I do a lot of corporate workshops for training in women's groups around the 5 ways, building resiliency. I have a new one I'm doing next week called Be Bold, Not Bossy, Be Confident, Not Cocky, How to Be an Assertive Woman Leader.
What a generous offer. Pattie, it has been just really, truly amazing having you as a guest. Honestly, I could talk about these topics for days.
I know. I think we could too. And I think more women should be having these kind of conversations, even amongst themselves. What do we do to help support other women?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on as a guest today.
Thank you so much. And I want you all to live your life awake and on purpose.
Thank you for listening to the Awake and On Purpose podcast. Please visit us and subscribe to the podcast at awakeandonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can connect with your higher purpose and take that leap of faith to make your impact in the world, visit us at jenniferspor.com. And while you're there, be sure to join our email list for exclusive offers and a weekly dose of inspiration.